Hey, welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, the show where psychology and science meet, and we attempt to explain any and every human behavior, including... Oh, this is fitting. This is fitting to the topic. Knocking on locked, obviously occupied bathroom stalls. Knocking on locked, obviously occupied bathroom stalls.
What's the appropriate response if you're the person in this? Like, what do you say? Mine's just the casual, yeah.
I liked your...
Occupied.
Dr. Sparks with the raspberry right off the bat.
I think I immediately just try to sound real gruff so they don't want to try to hurry me anymore. I don't know.
I do have a thing about this. Like, if it's locked and obviously occupied, I don't know why we're not, like, why are we knocking on it? I've had conversations with people like, why are we knocking on the door? Is it just to let me know that you're in a hurry?
Yeah, that's all I can think of is it is to try to hurry up the person that's waiting, because there's that idea that, like, I can't wait, please, or someone's waiting, I gotta step up my game here. But
I mean, little do they know that if I feel rushed, I'm probably gonna be in there a little longer.
starts get a little shy, a little gun shy in there.
It weaves its way back into you.
I don't want to go into like all the details, but yeah,
I think you gotta go with the
You gotta
awesome
regroup.
powers. Just go with the awesome powers. Like, who does number 2 work for?
Those movies are not as funny as I remember them as a child.
I have not watched them since I was a child, so I'm going to pretend that they're still just as relevant and funny as they ever were.
Is it going to be a thing every episode that we discuss movies that we haven't watched in over a decade?
You just wait 5 to 10 more years, and that's all you will do with your life also, okay? Just because you're like 10 years younger than us, just wait, all right?
I'm jealous of your youth, Brad.
Ageism.
Yeah. Don't let Steve get you down. I'm technically, I think, the oldest one in this room.
Considering we're not in the same room, any of us, you probably are the oldest person in that small box that you are sitting in right now. Yeah.
You can't see the gentleman I invited in. You don't know how old he is.
Fun fact, everyone. Kyle's only part of the show to really start slowly introducing himself back to society.
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
He can't be trusted within 10 feet of another human.
All right, so
simply not true.
To throw out what the topic is today before we introduce ourselves fully and get off on more tangents and never actually get to the topic, like always, we had someone write in this week's topic. And just to mention, everybody, if you're going to write in a requested topic, let us know if you want us to use your name or not. This person did not, so we're going to try to keep it semi-anonymous here with a question from C. Anthony. All it said was, "Why do you have to shit at Kohl's every time?" Period. The end.
Why do you why does Dr. Sparks?
Like they follow me around and know that I have an issue with Kohl's. Come to find out, this is like a thing, I guess, online where a lot of people feel this way. I was not from a Kohl's family. We had Marshalls or TJ Maxx, which is same sort of thing but different. So I don't know if it's specific to Kohl's, but I've never experienced this. But we'll get into it a little bit. Just let everybody know we're using this as a way to talk about the power of stimulus pairing, which sounds way more exciting than defecating at a store.
Unless if it's at a psychic's place. One time, me and Dr. Sparks, we were taking his children to the park. And then as we're walking back to the car, sorry to interject for a moment, but he sees a psychic's office right across the street, and he says, "Do you think I should walk in there, take a shit on the floor, and ask the psychic?" Did you see that one coming?
I swear, I'm sure I've never said such a thing in my life.
What an odd stimulus pairing.
I thought you went in there because you had to use the bathroom, and it's like bathrooms for customers only, so you can be like, just do it, but like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom first.
Yeah, no, this was just me making an old dad joke that I've heard many times, except I don't even remember it being about defecating on the floor, but it does sound like something someone like me may have said at some point in their life. I don't know.
You also just said the word shit, but then in this being more appropriate, you use the word defecating.
Well,
it's a medical term.
This is not South Park circa in 2008. How many times can we say shit in one episode before they cancel us? All right, let's not just throw it out there for the sake of throwing it out there, but because that is the way the topic was sent to us, I felt the need to label it that way.
We're just reading it. Yeah, we're just reading.
All right, hold on. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Sparks. With me today is my co-host, as always, Kyle. Hopefully not sitting in a urinal right now or a outhouse right now, Sturry. And then there's Dr. Bradley, probably still uses the cat box. Clements back over here. Today we'll be talking about defecation. All right, now let's jump back into this conversation.
Now we've got your attention. That's the hook. That's the clip.
For me, it's never been a Kohl's. For me, it's a, I'm at a buffet.
Let's all talk about where we have to poop the most. I think
if anybody spends enough time in a buffet, that's going to happen. It's just
Well, my thought is that as a child, I had the idea that you eat until you can't eat anymore at the buffet, and then you go and make some more room. And scientifically now, I know that does not make any sense.
No, I mean, if it did, you probably would just take food with you to the toilet and never leave. So
I don't go to Kohl's except to return Amazon purchases. They're like my local, and I'm there quite often because I'm notorious for borrowing things from Amazon. Especially like one-time use tools that I just have no other need for. I don't know. That's one of my life hacks.
This is how you build up your tools. Have you ever seen the movie Gran Torino? Like, you just buy them as you need them, and then by the time you're old and you can't use them anymore, you have every tool you'll ever need. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. I just don't know how often I need like heating element ratchet set for my dryer.
At least 2 more times in your life.
Do you guys know that Gran Torino was shot? I'm pretty sure that it was shot here in the Detroit area.
I mean, it takes place in the Detroit area as well, but yeah, I do believe
I haven't
that.
watched it enough.
I do believe that was a big sticking point, like when they were like filming it, and everybody was really excited about being filmed here. Back when they did movie filming credits here in the state of Michigan before somebody cut that out. So, so let's get back into Kohl's kind of specifically, because it is an interesting phenomenon, like what might be going on. Is it that people tend to go and make a day of it? Like, I'm going to go out to lunch, sit down with a friend, talk, and now I'm stopping at Kohl's on the way home. And like, yeah, I guess if that much time passes, you're more likely to need to go. Maybe they go on during a break and they're just a very regular person and they tend to need to go during that time of day. It could even be that, the stimuli at Kohl's have been paired with that for some reason. So use examples, say you have a certain air freshener or potpourri or something in your house or your apartment, and now when you walk into Kohl's, something smells very similar or the same. I don't know if they have like a perfume area or a candle area or something like that, but now that just keys in your body's like, oh nope, this is what I do here. And so hopefully you make it to the bathroom before just dropping trow right there in the middle of aisle 3,
That is, I was gonna ask about that, because at least do you know of any of the like sensory stimuli, if they have more like influence on like body reactions, whether it be, because my thought when you walk into a Kohl's, I guess you stimulate some touch by touching clothes. And then there's some visual, which I wouldn't think have much like body effect, but then the scent, I mean, would there have to be a correlation between scent that has more of a enforcement, I guess maybe is the word for
the type of stimuli doesn't matter as much as the salience and how strong the pairing is. And we'll get more into the pairings here in a minute and how that works. And we can't just talk about defecation. We'll talk a little bit about some science here too.
Yeah.
But no, like it is how
they can't all be hits.
Yeah. But like if it's a really strongly associated smell, you don't even have to know or remember what that smell is from. It doesn't even have to occur to you, oh, this is the same smell as here, or hey, this t-shirt that I touch every time I come in here because I want to buy it, but I never do. It feels a lot like my toilet paper. Or, this weird music in the background kind of sounds like the stuff that's playing in the bathroom at like, the office building, something like that. Any of those can have the same type of effect. And it doesn't matter what type of stimulus it is. It's just how much control over your environment does that have? I guess over of your behavior in that environment does that have at that moment? I mean, if you're distracted by 20 different things, it's going to be less likely to occur than if you walk in kind of only thinking about one or two things and that stimulus hits you. It's almost like I may have used this example before, but if you've ever been walking down the street and you smell a smell and it like brings the feelings rushing back, but you can't remember the actual situation. Like for me, there's a certain smell of cigars that reminds me of being a small child, but nobody in my family can remember who I would
Not
have
the
been
memory I
around.
thought.
No, that would have been as a teenager. No, and it reminds me just being a little kid running around. There's like an older gentleman, but I don't remember who it was, and nobody in my family remembers. Probably like a great uncle or something, but no one remembers who was smoking cigars that could bring this feeling of being a child back in that moment. And so it's that sort of thing where it could be anything. It just depends on how much it affects you in that moment based on what else you have going on.
There's something too, even like the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. I begin waking up before even ingesting, and I feel like the effects of the caffeine are already setting in. And that's a real studied phenomenon, right? Like it's not just hypothetical.
Well, because people often say that, drinking coffee makes them need to go as well. Like I was thinking walking into Starbucks or another coffee shop made a lot more sense than Kohl's, like you drink coffee, you need to go. This smell is associated with the coffee. It could very much have that effect. But it seems like Kohl's, and maybe there's a couple other places that really, closely associate with this phenomenon that there isn't as clear of a pathway down,
Buffets.
It is interesting that other people are talking about this. I will say it's not like profound, like all over the internet, like holy cow, this is a thing. But there's other people on the message boards talking about the fact that when they go into Kohl's, immediately feel like the release of bowel is imminent.
Maybe they're playing the brown note on the speakers and you just can't
Oh
tell.
yeah, have we talked about the brown note? We've never talked about the brown note.
Why don't you give them a rundown of the brown note here, Kyle?
The brown note was we tried to replicate it once. We didn't have big enough speakers back in my synthesizer band days, but there was supposed to be a frequency that you could play. They tried to weaponize this frequency that would make people who were subjected to it like physically ill and either elicit vomiting or diarrhea when hearing it because of the frequency at which it.
Yeah, the myth I heard is like it hits this
Vibrated.
frequency and you immediately just void your bowels, almost like the glass breaking from the opera
That's what
singer.
I've heard. Wasn't that a South Park thing?
They did the brown note. But there was also.
Is that how you know about the brown note? Is just from South Park?
Probably.
That's how I know about it. That's why I'm
but-
convinced all Steve, his whole education, and every reference he makes, we need to cross-reference it to South Park.
Like even if I can't make the connection, you guys can. Just
Is your name even Sparks, or is it just like a clue, like S Park?
I thought you were gonna go with the Cartman reference there, but
I was not gonna go with the Cartman reference.
Just so everyone knows, though, Mythbusters did their best to try to prove that there was a brown note, and using the top of the line, hundreds of $1,000s worth of equipment, they could not get it to happen. So the brown note likely does not exist. But
until someone accidentally does it in a public setting,
right, and at Kohl's every time you walk in the door, it's just the sound of the heater, the air conditioner, that hum is the right frequency.
Just get ready to have the wet floor sign by the entrance. Preferably, I want it to be like a revolving door that they have to enter through.
I just hope people are picturing this repeated mess, like right as someone wipes it up, the next street comes around.
Keeps coming back.
Instead of like a greeter at Kohl's now, they'll just have someone with a mop and like sanitizer.
somehow I knew this was always just going to turn into just a bunch of fart jokes. You know what I mean? Like this podcast had no other direction to just one day be nothing but bathroom humor. It
I
just
mean,
it
it
was
really is the best podcast ever.
all
Let's
right.
get to the
So
sciencey stuff. Let's talk about Pavlov, though. I feel like Pavlov and respondent conditioning has a lot to do with this.
that is what we often attribute this type of stimulus pairing to. And I know we've talked about Pavlov briefly here, so this will be kind of a deep dive, but hopefully not too of a boring deep dive. Like let's get you to hang up before we get back to the funny, interesting societal stuff. But so Pavlov's dog, he was doing a digestion study, wanted to see, the effects of salivation on digestion, and was had the food, would present it, the dog would salivate. He started, or his assistant started ringing a bell to signal the oncoming food. And because the bell was paired with the food frequently enough, over time, this neutral stimulus of the bell acquired the effects of the already conditioned stimulus of the set of food and caused salivation before the food was ever presented. And so when we're talking about stimulus pairing, we're talking about some event, condition, or item in the environment that starts off neutral and acquires some functionality due to it being temporally related or occurring around the same time as another stimulus which already has some sort of functionality. We talk about it in a few different ways in our science. First is, again, this Pavlovian, there with a respondent conditioning or Pavlovian conditioning, there is no reinforcer involved. It's just a stimulus which then occasions the behavior. Like salivation, at least in theory, there's not a reinforcer that follows salivation to then make it occur more frequently in the future. Although you could argue, well, you're getting food shortly after most of the time, but we won't even go down that rabbit
Don't
hole
go down
for
that
you.
road.
No,
Stimulus response,
yeah,
reflex. Think reflex.
right. And so it is just that ability to occasion a response in a Pavlovian setting that is the stimulus pairing. But the same type of phenomena happens in an operant setting or a Skinnerian or applied behavioral setting where a stimulus, because it occurs at the same time or place as another stimulus that already has either a reinforcing effect, a motivating operations effect, or a discriminative stimulus effect, will then acquire those. And so here it is, quiz time. Brad, do you remember from previous conversations what motivating operations and discriminative stimuli are? You can say no if
No.
you have no idea.
No, I can try to use logic to reason my way through it, but off the top of my head, no.
Let's not do that to the listeners.
Enlighten me.
So, just refresher, I know I mentioned it before. Motivating operations. Think of it just as motivation. Anything in the environment or any environmental change that increases the reinforcing or punishing value of a stimulus in the environment and increases or decreases the behavior that would achieve that outcome. So, you don't eat for a long period of time, you're going to do more behavior in order to achieve the reinforcer of food. If you've just eaten a whole bunch, that's going to decrease the behavior that will result in you acquiring more food until you've gone, a significant period of time. So that's the motivating operation side. Discriminative stimulus is basically explains the availability of reinforcement. So a stimulus event or condition in the environment that in the presence of which you're more likely to have your behavior reinforced. Again, the example I always fall back on just to make it simple, grandma is an SD or a discriminative stimulus for asking for a cookie because asking grandma is going to be much more likely to be reinforced than dad who's an S delta or is more likely to say no. So you have a neutral stimulus, nothing doesn't have any effect on you, but it's always paired with grandma there is going to then potentially act as an SD or a discriminative stimulus for asking for a cookie. So you walk by somebody who wears the same perfume as grandma, or maybe as a young child, you're not discriminating who's giving me cookies. It's just an older person with gray hair. And you walk up to an elderly stranger and say, "Hey, grandma, or hey, I want a cookie, or can I have a cookie? Just that pairing between some of these stimuli that our grandma or makes grandma who that person is to you may occasion that behavior or signal reinforcement. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's not. It's just that pairing between stimuli. It also is how we create, and I say create, it sounds like we're doing this purposefully, but this is how new reinforcers become established as well. Something that always is attributable to or always occurs at the same time as a reinforcer will then become reinforcing in its own right as well. So, and again, this also works with punishing things. So let's see, say you went to a pizza shop growing up, it's always the same one, and they had like a flashing neon light. Not only could that flashing neon light cause you to feel hungry when you weren't feeling hungry in the first place, because it's been paired with the consumption of pizza or the taste of pizza, it'll increase your motivating operation or your MO. It could bring about the smell of your favorite pizza, even though you're not actually near that favorite pizza at this time. And it could also reinforce your behavior momentarily in the same way that receiving a slice of pizza could, even though you don't actually have any pizza right there that you would get as well. Like I said, it works with negative things or aversive things as well. I don't want to say negative because it's only negative to you, maybe, but I still have trouble with golf being on the television and the sound of planes flying over and birds chirping because of being a young child sitting at my grandparents' house. They're playing cards, watching golf on TV, and I'm laying there bored. And now that feeling of that boredom, that aversive condition, floods back whenever Brad's over and he puts golf on my damn TV.
Well, golf
And
is
he
extremely boring. So
He puts it on every chance he gets.
Hey, it's ASMR.
In a negative way, though. It has the exact opposite effect to me compared to most people.
Positive only. It's
It's
relaxing. It's not going to get your blood pressure up.
Oh, it
There's
does
a
me.
positive correlation to health with me, except when I play. When
But
I play, blood pressure goes very high.
it's probably, though, because I've always found sleep to be somewhat aversive. You know what I mean? Like, it's something you need. It's very important. But I always thought it was kind of a waste of time. I'd rather be doing something else. I didn't want to fall asleep bored at Grandma and Grandpa's house while they play cards, you know?
we need to do.
Play cards with them?
This is before I was old enough. Like, once I was old enough, in my family, you have to be good enough. You had to be good enough to play and keep up with the adults. Otherwise, you were just going to ruin the game for them and you weren't invited. And so it was a big deal to be good enough to play cards with them. And then later on, it was like, if you were good enough at math to keep score, you were kind of a big deal. Like, you were officially part of the game now. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of a cool experience. But as a young child, when, like, all right, we're trying to play rummy or gin rummy or Shanghai rummy or whatever it was at the time, there's a lot of going on, a lot of calculation, and it was punished without being overtly mean or punishing. That, like, if you played the wrong card and asked for it back, like, we're gonna let you because you're a kid, but we can't do that. It's against the rules. Like, don't you gotta work on this, all right?
See, I feel like because you still love cards, but like that sounds traumatizing. Like how did you not build like an aversive reaction to playing cards so cutthroat?
Well, probably because it shaped my behavior of playing cards so cutthroat. Like, I'm always thinking many steps ahead, trying to figure out ways and what other players may play and assuming what they're doing, because you wanted to be able to keep up with everybody and play the way they were playing, and rather than just being a hindrance to the game. But probably because it was almost this idea of, like, once I'm old enough and big enough and I can count and I have my numbers and I was like reading, writing, doing all these things that bigger kids did. Now I get to join the game. You know what I mean? It
Gotcha.
was something to work towards, I think. And it's not like they didn't play like Go Fish with me and things like that too. It was just the adult game you couldn't join until you were ready.
Mm-hmm.
It is really hard at my house for game night. We try to do game night, and it's like I've got 2 older boys and 2 younger girls, and it's just like, we want to play Settlers of Catan, and the girls are like, we don't know how to play that. We want to do Twister. Yeah, it just doesn't
Yeah.
ever.
we're talking back in times where, like, I remember around the same time playing Guess Who, but I couldn't read yet, and so like I'd be like
Yeah.
basically guessing based on the description, which I was very good at, and then I'm like, I don't know how to guess this person's name, so I'm just going to show you the card, and if I'm wrong, we have to start all over again. You know what I mean? Like,
My daughter's the best to play Guess Who with. She'll be like, "Does your person have fun at Disney World?" Like, probably. And then she like
absolutely not. Look at that face.
she like eliminates a few people. I'm like, "Who'd you eliminate?"
She says, yes, this is perfect. This is really narrowing down my selection. Does your person look like they would go defecate into Kohl's right away?
I remember that Tom from that game, he would definitely defecate as soon as he walked into Kohl's. So
Oh man, I can't picture anybody specifically. Only just like amorphous
I
squares where
like
faces were.
no, there's a few that I can just picture, like that giant mustache on one guy. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Just real quick, give one more example of the Pavlovian conditioning, because I had it written down, and just to kind of give an example of like real life. Imagine you've been like somewhere, there's a fire, the smell of smoke now, creates a panic response, and you rush out of the building. Now in the future, you're cooking, smoke smell in the air, but it's due to your cooking, probably not doing a good job at it, but cooking nonetheless, and you set off the smoke alarm. So smoke has been paired with the alarm. Smoke has been paired with danger. Now you're sitting there randomly, the smoke alarm comes on, and you have an immediate, panic response due to that pairing of the smoke and the alarm, even though the danger has never been part of that pairing in the previously. So sure, there could be some verbal behavior there, like, oh, I know that there's probably a fire when this goes off, but that immediate response before you even have a chance to think about it would more likely be due to that pairing, instead of just sitting there like, what does that sound again? Like, what is that? What's making that noise? Had you not had that experience in the past. So just that's more of the Pavlovian panic response type thing on that, that I had written down just to kind of give a more real life scenario rather than it being just based on Pavlov and his dog.
One that I feel like very common. I mean, how would it be like the association between when individual, like someone may not be a smoker or at all, but then when they're drinking out with people, and then we'll have like what they call like the drunk cigs or whatever, or just I guess nicotine in general. What is the pairing between that one? Because where like nicotine in itself is like an addictive chemical.
There probably a lot, and it'd be interesting to see, and maybe because you're younger, you can attribute or talk about this as well. But if we're talking about someone that's never smoked whatsoever, unless they're around a lot of people who smoke when they're drinking, I would bet that pairing's a lot less frequent or a lot less common now than back in the day when everybody was smoking at the bar. And so even if you weren't smoking, you were surrounded by smoke, and there is that pairing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I've even heard people that never smoked say like, oh, like they had a real stressful day and like randomly feel like they need a cigarette, which is interesting because although we think about cigarettes calming us down because of that's kind of like the stereotype, really nicotine is a stimulant, so it has the opposite effect unless you are a smoker, at which point uh you'll feel anxiety if you need a cigarette and don't have one, and so you've paired that feeling of calming down with having a cigarette, and that's why there's this idea that cigarettes calm us down when they don't really, naturally anyways.
Okay.
Just a social factor too. I mean, there's like socially mediated reinforcement. Like if everyone else is smoking too, like while having drinks, then
Yeah,
that motivating operation might make it a little more likely that you engage in a similar behavior. There's also like your baseline being very different when you're inebriated, and so
yeah.
the value of the nicotine or even just the act of smoking with other people being more valuable and thus more likely to.
I mean, I'm sure it's more likely to sound like a good idea if you're drunk, um and if you used to smoke and then you
Right.
stop, alcohol very likely will bring that flooding back, because anytime you're in a position where you smoked more often than normal or almost always smoked, you're going to have those feelings paired with it. And so We get into it a little bit deeper here like later, but when someone has an addiction issue and they're trying to stop, that's why it's so important to try to put yourself in new situations and
Hmm.
have different people to hang out with, different things to do. It's not just to keep yourself busy, but it's to stop encountering those paired relations that are going to bring that motivation flooding back to you.
My
um
last cigarette was 16 years ago, and I had it right before I decided on a whim to hike up Pikes Peak. Like the morning of, I was like, I'm in Colorado Springs. I'm gonna bike over to Pikes Peak. So waste a lot of energy already on a bike. Have a cigarette and a Red Bull, and then try to hike Pikes Peak with no water bottle or anything, any gear or anything. And I felt like I was going to die, and then I never smoked a cigarette again, and I have
i
had no desire to. And I only made
i
it
always thought
halfway
you
up.
I, I always got this picture of you being like total straight edge. I wouldn't have pictured you as the smoking type.
Uh, it was the social factor for a while. I
Yeah.
wasn't like a pack a day by any means, um, but
You were
I
two
was in a
packs.
2 packs a day. That hypocrite. I was just in a band, and that's just what we did just before the
Yeah.
shows.
I mean, I definitely did at one point, and it was, to me, something you just did while drinking or partying or whatever. But
Yeah.
then when I stopped, smoking pot and doing those other things, the motivation was still there, even though it wasn't. And I would smoke cigarettes more because I was like replacing that feeling of smoking something. And
Mm.
so I had to break that pairing as well, which is interesting. And seeing how reinforcement works, this wasn't part of the plan, but it is an interesting study that was done where they showed the easiest way to quit smoking is to not try to reduce smoking at all, but increase the amount of nicotine in cigarettes or whatever you are smoking over time. And so you can smoke all you want, but because you're slowly reducing it, it becomes less and less reinforcing. And by the time you're down to very little or none, the act of smoking is no longer reinforcing and people just quit naturally. The problem is you have to stretch this out and do it very slowly over a long period of time. Otherwise, it's too aversive to drop off too quick. And now you're not getting anything out of the smoking that next step down. You're going to go jump back up to the one previous. And so you have to do it
Mm.
so gradual you don't even notice that it's like no longer as reinforcing or doesn't feel as good until you are down to where it's not reinforcing at all. So one more thing I was going to throw out just to show the power of pairing, like, from our field. Interesting thing I learned about and tried when I was a master's student. I was working with a child that didn't have verbal capabilities, so couldn't talk to me. And I was finding in a multi-step skill we were trying to teach, if I deliver a reinforcer after the first or second step in this process, and this one, it was actually a play skill. Like you have to stand up, go over here, do this thing, come back, sit down. And the general goal is you reinforce each step. All right, first we're going to reinforce the first step. And then once you have mastered that, now we're not going to give you reinforcement until you master the second step. And you just increase the steps in the chain. But we could
Hmm.
never get there because every time we would deliver a reinforcer, it would just stop the whole process. And we couldn't get to that second step and maintain the motivation to go to that second step if we didn't use the reinforcer. With this, we would pair a sound with something we knew was reinforcing. In this case, I was playing with the child and we'd like fly the airplane around, be real silly, and I'd pair that with a sound. And we'd do that 10 times before we'd start the next learning session. And then we would deliver the sound after each successful step in the process. And that sound, just because it had been paired with that play just beforehand, was enough to reinforce those steps. And we were able to teach a skill that we had gotten stuck on for months up to that point. And so just that sound occurring before us being
Hmm.
silly 10 times real quick before we did something was enough for it to acquire the reinforcing value of that being silly. And that was pretty cool and almost mind-blowing. It seems almost magical when you think about it in terms of just pairing two stimuli together, but scientifically it makes perfect sense.
They do this with athletes too, where they have a sound paired for like correct form or something like that, and it's usually computerized. But it will track your movements. Say if you're like trying to like throw a pitch a certain way as a baseball player or something like that, it will give you feedback based on like there's a tone that's like correct, and then if you get no tone, I might be botching that. It might be backwards, but it's designed to give you immediate feedback, and what you're trying to do is get it to where you're getting reinforced by more tones because essentially you're doing more and more steps of a very quick motion correctly.
Yeah, I remember. I'm guessing. I think it was the first study done with athletes using sound like that, and it was still just using the clicker like they use in dog training with
Yeah.
college linemen for football, and just if your form was correct, you did it correctly. You heard the click. If not, then you didn't, and they were
Mhm.
trying to reinforce correct form and movements on the offensive line, I believe it was. And I only know or think that was the first study because I used that while I was researching how to use the technique in the situation I was in. So
Yeah, I've seen it specifically for like free throw shooting. I've seen it for gymnastics, golf form perhaps.
don't,
So
Brad, it's
Brad,
not going to help you. It's
Perhaps
not going to help you. You're a lost cause.
I am.
perhaps
I
golf
tested it
form.
long ago.
All right. So back to some examples talking about some things we find here. I've never had this experience at Kohl's, but there was a store. It's like Home Depot or Menards or any of those that whatever you have in your area. It was called Builder Square, and it was by our house as a kid. And every
I
time I
remember
walked in,
Builders Square. Okay.
you know, every
Yeah.
time I walked
Is it
in
like
as
a
a child,
blockbuster where it was big back in the day and now it's gone?
I have no idea if it was just like a handful or if they were national or what it was. There's just one in our town.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It was like a Home Depot.
Yeah, it was before I ever heard of Home Depot. It was before I ever heard of any of these others. We just had a Builder Square. Every time I'd walk in with my dad, I'd immediately get a headache. Walking into Builder Square, you get a headache every time, and I don't know why for sure, but I have a feeling it was the fresh wood would aggravate my allergies. I'd start getting a headache from, the constriction of the blood vessels in my forehead and my nasal area, the allergen or not allergen, the sinus areas. And so that reaction occurred because of the building, because that had been paired with the wood and being in that area of the store itself. And Brad, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe there is a natural reaction to irritants in the environment, which is what causes the discomfort, rather than it being like the item itself being an irritant, if I'm correct. So like your allergies that you experience, I think, have to do with your body's reaction to that irritant, not that the irritant's making you feel that way, if that makes sense.
I mean, in a way, you're kind of saying the same thing because what it is the whatever you're saying is like the irritant is an allergen, which then binds to certain like receptors, cells, and then causes like this cascade of a reaction that then results in something like allergies.
Right. So it's not that, all right, I smell this and I have this pain, but it's your body's reaction to that item. And so I think potentially my body starts reacting because of the pairing of the wood with walking into the store rather than it just being that I smelled the wood from across the store. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and too, an interesting thing about allergies is that most of the time, it's not like you're like for some allergies you are always allergic to them, but sometimes like you have to be exposed to the allergen to then build a response or an appropriate response, I should say it as. So, do you remember that it was like all the time, or was it just like one time it wasn't, next time it wasn't, but then all of a sudden you started getting it?
I was very young, but what I remember is specifically at first being in the area by the lumber that I would start feeling not well.
But I mean,
But
even still, like and I mean, you're the behaviorist, but even that, like a physiologic response to something like that is still like a less than desirable situation. And so then would it be possible that your body would train itself to like almost like heighten that if it's like wants you to steer clear of that situation?
It's not impossible, and it's even possible that I didn't like going as a kid because it was boring, and so maybe it was just aversive, and I started not feeling well because it was aversive as well. But to go based on what you're saying, one hypothesis, one thing they found in opiate drug use is that your body will start reacting and planning for the use of drugs in certain situations before you even inject or ingest them. So if you tend to use heroin in the same place all the time, your body, I believe it would be your parasympathetic nervous system starts releasing hormones and basically counteracting the effect of the drugs before you've actually used them. Um, Now you're in a new situation where you've never used drugs before, use the same amount you normally would, but your body doesn't start counteracting the effects of slowing your heart rate down, that sort of thing, before you use them. And that is hypothesized, at least sometimes, why overdoses occur, is because this is a new environment. My body did not react to that stimulus in the same way.
Called compensatory reaction, correct?
Yeah, that's I probably said the wrong thing about the.
No, I think you said it right.
Okay.
The technical term, I think, is what they coined it as
Yeah. And so
compensatory.
it really could be your body either preparing for something as stimulus, or like you said, nope, this is an aversive situation. You're going to start feeling it because this is how it made you feel in the first place. Any of those could be occurring, and that's why on this show we're not analyzing specific instances because we can't know for sure, but talking about the possibilities.
So I don't know if you planned for this or not, but the C. Anthony seems like they may be in some distress. Is there a way to unlearn, or how would you go about unteaching this reaction upon entering a Kohl's?
So if you are talking about breaking the pairing, is how we usually talk about it, and basically it will maintain its effect as long as the initial pairing continues to occur. So say it's the potpourri in grandma's bathroom is paired with the smell of walking into Kohl's. Maybe that's where she got her towels or something, I don't know. And if you stop pairing that smell with going to the bathroom in the first place, or grandma changes her scent and so it's no longer paired with Kohl's, over time that effect will break down because that pairing is not occurring. But as long as the stimuli involved are being paired even at different times in different situations, then you would not expect that effect to decrease over time. And so if you want something that is a reinforcer but is not a socially acceptable reinforcer, I'm trying to think of I can't think of a great example off the top of my head, but if you stop the pairing between the original reinforcing item and that reinforcer, it could lose its reinforcing value because that pairing no longer occurs. And so say you're ordering a pizza, the sound of the phone, I guess back in the day anyways, the dial tone or the ringing of the phone, the person's voice, all those things are reinforcing along the chain of behavior because they're paired with the final outcome of having that reinforcer of the pizza. If none of those things ever lead to a pizza or anything else reinforcing ever again, then those stimuli as part of that act will lose their reinforcing value. In the same way, this could stop its reinforcing value if the pairing stopped, just like the bell no longer being paired with the food over time no longer occasioned salivation for Pavlov's dogs.
On that note, you could also surround yourself with grandma's potpourri in other situations and other times too. Go ahead.
I'd say, or either it no longer has that effect on you because it's where you smell it all the time, or you just constantly defecate
You
yourself
just constantly
nonstop.
defecate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's trial and error, but
Okay, you guys said it, and so then I'm gonna say this because you guys said something, and if you want to cut it, what about if they were to not allow themselves to go to the bathroom, and then they have to go in the middle of the Kohl's, and then that type of embarrassing situation that I feel like that would break
okay.
a pairing.
I mean, you can have pairings on top of pairings. You can have 3 or 4th level pairings. Like we talked about real briefly in the past, the idea of talking about like baseball's in the corner. I'm talking to my friend about his love life. I say struck out, and then next time I'm talking about it, we're in a completely new situation. But I want a hot dog because hot dogs paired with baseball. Talking about his life, like love life's paired with baseball, but there's seemingly no connection between love life and hot dog. You know what I mean? And let's not get into those jokes here, guys. Come on now. This is a professional show. But
Yeah.
no, you can have pairings on top of pairings. You have all kinds of things as long as that continues to be. You could easily set up the smell of that potpourri, or even needing to go to the bathroom to be an aversive condition, an aversive stimuli that you want to escape from. You never go to Kohl's again. You start holding it in when you don't want to. It is not hard to accidentally create the toileting process to be an aversive condition for kids, and now it's a fight every time throughout the process, even though you're trying to do, even if you're using a positive approach to toilet training. You know what I mean? Like the potential of what could happen is endless in any of these situations.
So is that why then, like the common one that you see in like movies and stuff, the rubber band that someone wears on their wrist whenever they do something, they snap themselves? Is that them trying to break a pairing to make it aversive with that thought or the
In
thing that they're
theory,
trying to get away from?
in theory, they're supposed to be just punishing that thought or that habit or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like I used it in grad school just because I was chewing on all my pens and then they'd fall apart and I wouldn't have a pen. And so the addition of the aversive condition should have a punishing effect. But like you're saying now, that's also how you pair and create either, punishers or reinforcers. And so you could, in that context, make chewing on your pen aversive, or the pen in your hand. You can make the sight of pens aversive if you were harsh enough and made it so aversive that like now, and that's part of the problem with punishment is you could and often do punish a lot more behavior than you actually intend to in that process. You know what I mean? Like now I'm never writing again just because I hurt myself too badly when I chewed on my pen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I know someone mentioned to me when I was talking about this, like needing to pee when you're about to go into a situation where you know you're not going to be able to. Like that feeling comes rushing in just, and whether that's because you've been in that environment before and it just has made it more salient, because you may not even need to go after that moment's over, or needing to blink, like in a moment where you're trying to catch a small detail of something, or someone's about to take a picture. I always wonder, do people really blink that frequently, or is it just the actual picture being taken that occasions that?
I'm gonna look it up, but what would you guys guess is the average number of blinks a day? I'm curious.
537.
Dude, there's way more than that. Are you
I think
kidding
more
me?
than that. I'm saying like
I've-
50,000 to 100,000.
I am nowhere near that attuned to my blinking. I have no idea how often I blink.
Steve, you would have the driest eyes in the world.
I probably do.
Okay, so your guess was 500. Yeah, buddy, you got some dry eyes. Average number is around like 14,500 to 19,200.
Man, I overshot.
Yeah, I win because you went over. So that's all there is to it. That's how this works. This
Like
is
Alright.
Price is Right.
All
Guessing
right,
a dollar
Steve,
on Price is Right?
let's have you try a day of 500 blinks and see if your eyes are like even like functioning.
Listen, I don't even notice I'm blinking, but I guess if it's that high, then it's probably just happens to be that people are blinking that frequently, and it's that hard to catch people not blinking in a picture.
But with that statement, who recognizes with each blink that they have? It's equivalent to taking a breath. Like if you
I'm not
if you
saying that.
consciously like pay attention to your breathing, it becomes kind of difficult.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying someone's sitting around counting or that attuned to it, but they must be much more attuned to it than I am for me to think that I only blink 500 times a day. Because like I'm obviously not paying any attention to my blinking whatsoever, compared to someone with like Kyle who thinks it's 20,000 times a day.
I said
How many
50 to
times do you
100.
think you just blinked when you started that sentence?
I'm sure it's way more now because now I'm cognizant of it.
It was 10.
It's become salient in the moment. So
It was 10.
now I can't see because I blinked too much. Look what you did.
He's gonna be walking around. It's gonna be like one of those what were those camera things back in the day that you'd like flip through and it'd go picture to picture to picture.
The flip books.
Yeah.
The flip
Yeah.
books
That's
are the
what
one that you
Steve's
had to
world
push
is gonna be in now. It's a flip book.
Yeah.
Flip book.
Probably.
Oh, or the like I Spy thing.
No,
or
I
the-
think you're right with the flip book because it's going to be
Oh,
real
yeah.
fast. So.
Yeah. A flip book is what I meant
blinking,
to do.
you'll miss it.
Yep.
Oh, you guys have ruined this whole show. Thank
But
you.
now
for
we
that.
know why people have to poop at Kohl's. And that
Maybe.
really, I mean, if the world ends tomorrow, I think we've contributed.
We've saved a life.
And we've taught stimulus pairing in a very classy way. I think that's the most important thing as well, too. You know, like. All right. Anything else you want to throw in here? Anything else you want to call me out for? Maybe sound like an idiot, Brad.
Now this one's more just so it's not related, but this one was funny. So everyone, I am like a licensed veterinarian. Fun fact. And Steve's dog had an ear infection, and I put the dog on
Aw.
antibiotics.
I believe the technical term is Frito ears, if I believe what you and
Yeah.
your sister have been calling her.
Yeah. So I put the dog on oral antibiotics and then topical antibiotics and like medication that he'd put in the ears.
Eardrops.
Yeah.
For those that can't
Eardrops
see you
I mean, this
pointing at
dog
your
should
ear
have
with
been
the
receiving
topical.
these for the past 10 days. And I come over, I'm dropping some stuff off at his place, and he goes, I have a confession to make. He brings the bottle out, and like the topper that is like the cap of the bottle, he says, I didn't realize that this was a cap. So
I've been
he's been sticking the cap of this medication into his dog's ears and squeezing, thinking he's medicating his dog.
It's a
when
very.
he was never doing anything.
And the point is, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing any harm. It's still a very long, like pointy item that could have been the size of a dropper, but I just didn't realize that there was a cap to take off. So yes, thanks for
Brad,
adding that.
Are you allowed to talk
Just
about your
because he's a
patients?
PhD.
Yeah, no, this is.
I don't mean he ain't the smartest guy in the room all the time.
This is straight up
you-
HIPAA violation. We are.
I was gonna say,
going to
are you allowed to talk about your patients, or is it a HIPAA violation?
Wow.
He just he allowed it.
So one more thing, and then we will seriously get off here. Same conversations with the dog. He calls to give us like the testing results, and talking about her because of the yeast, her feet and her ears do smell like Fritos. And so here he is talking about, as he's recording himself for the medical note because he's too lazy to write it down later. He's like, oh shoot, I forgot that I'm recording this. All of my notes are going to just talk about her having Frito ears and Frito feet and how you should dress her up like a Frito for Halloween. And so he's like, I got to erase this. And his sister, my wife, is like, you better not. I do not provide consent for you to alter my pet's medical records to take this out. So we'll see. We're going to request those soon, and we'll see if he still has a job here coming up.
Guys, don't do that to me.
Call the licensing board here.
I live in a state of constant anxiety, so don't. Yeah, talk about betrayal. Local vet loses job because of sibling has an issue with chip description.
Sounds like you could use
all
a
right.
trip to Kohl's.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, just having us come in for an appointment is going to have some sort of visceral reaction due to a stimulus pairing. So there we go. We've tied it in.
Actually, because your guys' appointment was at like, let's say it was at 11 or whatever, and you weren't there by 10:58, and I'm like, of course they're gonna be late. I actually stood above where like the drive that comes into the hospital, and like this like lone window, just watching the parking lot, waiting for you guys to come in, and you actually parked right below the window. So I was really hoping that you guys would see me just peering out at you.
If I would have thought to look up, I didn't know that was a second floor, but I would have had the kids look up and wave at you up there. So
Yeah.
That's a story for another time. But he decided it was a good idea for me to have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old help me bring the dogs in by myself for her checkup.
Mhm.
That was a fun time. So, all right. Any other actual relevant information here? Anyone? No.
Sure.
No, none at all.
All right. Let's try to end this on a positive note, like always. You know, the world's a rough place, and so let's try to live for the moment, enjoy the good moments, enjoy the little things in life, because you never know when you're gonna walk into Kohl's, lose control of your bowels, and just shit yourself right there on the floor. So